Now, this video is going to be about one of my favourite players of all time. It is, of course, about Perkz, right? The legendary Perkz. And this is a guy where you want to talk about clutch factor. He's got to be one of the most clutch players in League of Legends ever. Never mind just in Western League of Legends or European League. I think he's number one easily in Europe. This is a guy where, think about the clutch factor in League of Legends. Obviously, we all know the game 5. You're in the 2-2 game. It's a decision. Silver Scripts is playing. Do you win? Do you clutch up? Yeah, everyone knows that aspect. And people know who win the best of 5s, etc. Blah, blah, blah. By the way, over in China, for example, Mako was exceptional in best of 5s, bizarrely. Uzi, not very good in best of 5s. Probably didn't know that, did you? But it's not just game 5 that has a clutch factor. An obvious clutch factor is game 4, right? Think about it. When you're winning, game 4 allows you to close the series without having to face elimination point yourself and feeling the fear necessarily and be clutch in that regard and not endanger the win. When you're down 1-2, now you have to force game 5, otherwise it's over, right? And you know what? Perkz is exceptional in all regards. He is the most clutch player in Europe in terms of the numbers, and I think the eye test as well. There's a reason why, until basically, 2022, he kind of was a true contender to caps for the GOAT title. Like, in all regards, you could say it was him. That could be your preference, as it once was for me. Now I've seen Caps do this exceptional stuff last few years. Yeah, I've got to give him the nod. He gets the shout. But here's the thing. A lot of people will have heard of Perkz' record, and they'll think it's just G2, isn't it? After that, he wasn't good in Cloud9, accountability, vitality, sucked in and heroic. So here's the thing people don't seem to realise. The record mainly started getting talked around, I think it was around the end of 2019, because at that point, it had gotten insane, and he'd played a whole bunch of international series, including against top Asian teams and number 1 seeds. But you know what? It didn't stop after that. Over his whole career, and I'm going to go through it, he has 28 wins and 7 losses in best of 5s, real ones. There's one that I included that you can debate, which is when he had to get playing against Infinity and they won 3-1 there. But if you want to take that off, it would be 27-7. Still an insane record. By the way, when his team's down 1-2, including against some of the best teams in the world, he is 12-4 in wins for the insane, that's the most insane clutch record you can imagine of a Western player. Oh, and by the way, since he left G2, you might go ahead and say, well, first of all, he was carried by Caps in G2. He wasn't. I'll show you, actually. He was actually the guy who often was clutching it out in G2 and had the international performances, sometimes over Caps, by the way, in years like 2019. But also, when you go and you look, after he left G2, in Cloud9 and then into Vitality, and then, yeah, obviously, you can forget about Heretics, he actually continued. Like, he is 7-3 since he left G2, and one of those 3 losses is actually like in the Vitality team. So as a result, people think it's only because he was on G2 where he was carried. He was very clutch in Cloud9, as I'm about to show you. This video is sponsored by Ridge, and in the past you've heard me big up their products. I have the Ridge wallet. I've had one of them for 4 years. This is a new one. Fit all the cards in, etc. Protection from RFID tracking, all the different things. And the key case doesn't jangle. Fit up to 6 keys in it. I think you can fit up to 12 cards in here. But actually, this time, I want to tell you about Ridge's Super Truck Summer Sweepstakes. They are selecting one winner to choose between a Hennessy Velociraptor, a gold-plated Cybertruck, or $100,000 in cash. It runs from now until the 13th of September. And you know what? You can even enter for free. There are tons of ways you can enter, as well as entering for free. Every dollar that you spend will get you another entry into the tournament. And they will give you 4 times the entries if you specifically purchase the Cyber Wallet or Hennessy specialty products using my link, ridge.com/Thorin, as you see on the bottom of the screen. So go to the right website, which of course is ridge.com/Thorin. Use my unique link, and remember, for every dollar spent, you get an entry into this massive Super Truck Summer Sweepstakes. Thank you very much to Ridge. So let's go look at these games that my dude played in. So here we have the EULCS. First split he ever played. We're into the playoffs. He already starts in the semis because, he didn't have an amazing lineup, but his team ended up winning the split. In the semis, they play Fnatic. This is 2016, so it was one of the worst Fnatics. They win 3-1, and in the 4th game, he has an all-right Rise game. He goes to the final. In the final, they play Origin of Soaz and Mithy and Sven, and this was the one where they had Power of Evil started, and then they would bring in Expecate. They won there in the 4th game. He had a pretty good game on Zed. This is more when Trick was piloting him on the map a little bit, and then he would sort of dive. So, yeah, played well, side lane diving like Perkz. There you go, start the career off nicely. Then you go to the summer. In the summer, in the semis, he starts again because he had a top team. They play against Unicorns of Love, who was a pretty good team that year, you might remember. They win in game 4. This time he has a Malzahar, he doesn't have to do much here. This is more about Trick, Sven. There's a reason why Trick was the MVP at this point in time, even if sometimes I thought Jankos was as good. Then you go to the final, and they played Splice, who were on the rise that year with Yamato Cannon, if you remember, when they brought in that Danish lineup. They win in the finals, 4th game. He has a monster Vladimir game, hella carry. They just make sure it doesn't even go to a 5th game, as you'd find out next year. Obviously, Splice was a team that could really take them the distance. They just win that one there, straight up, nicely done. At this point, by the way, he's 4-0 in game 4s. Then you go to the next year, because obviously he didn't do anything at Worlds. And in the semi-finals, they play Fnatic again. This is 2017, so we're starting to get a pretty decent Fnatic now. Look, you're starting to get the lineup together. They just hadn't got in Hylissang yet. In game 4, he has a nice game on he has a nice game on Cassiopeia. Carries on that. They win against Fnatic. Then they go to the final, where they played against Unicorns of Love. If you remember, this is when, like, Vizichachi was like an MVP player, and they actually had a not bad lineup, even though, yeah, some of these names haven't really edged that well. In game 4, they won 3-1, so they won game 4, of course. He has a nice little bonk carry performance. Remember, this is 2017, and this is when they're about to start performing internationally. Now, at MSI, if you remember, this team actually had their glow up and all the mockery from the NA fans had to stop. So in the semi-finals, they played Team WE, the champions of China, with Shiye and people like that. It's obviously not the lineup that they have now. They had Shiye in this lineup. I can show you right here. They had Shiye and they had Mystic. Mystic was a pretty good carry as a ADC, right? They win 3-1, so they win game 4. Game 4, Perkz is on the Syndra. All right game. It's mainly obviously about Sven in this one, but you're playing very good competition. Then you go to the final, you play SKT, you lose 3-1, so obviously you lose game 4 and you lose from 1-2 down. But understandable, this is when Faker's still good. This is when they'd won the split in LCK. Yeah, they struggled in summer. At winter, you had to do the hero carry. Faker was still really good at this time. You had an okay Oriana game, but you made the final of an international tournament in your second year of your career. Then you go to the EU LCS. And this time we're skipping to summer because in spring wasn't that much competition. They were able to just win without going to them. They have to, in the quarterfinals, play that Splice team, who now have Mickey X, I think. Yes, and this is actually a hard one. They're up 2-1, but they go all the way to game 5. In game 4, actually, he loses. He loses his first ever game 4 because of a mega Senkuks performance. Trashy's doing well. Just a generally great performance here. Not that good a game on Corky from him. But you go to the final. It was a 3-0, so there wasn't any more games there. Then you go to next year, because remember, at Season 7 Worlds, they were really good in the group, but they had RNG and Samsung, 2 eventual semi-finals, so they didn't get out. So you skip to next year. This is when they got Jankos, and he had the Wadid Hyan in bot lane, and he got Wunder in the top lane. Into the playoffs we go. In the semi-finals, they play a Splice, different Splice this time. It's the one with Niski and Xerxes and Odoamne, etc. They managed to win 3-1, so unsurprisingly they win. He's not exactly the insane carry. Achihanan has a very good game there, but he has a decent Rise game, and they win. They go to the final, and obviously the final they got 3-0'd, so we skip ahead again. Now we're going to skip to the regional. In the regional, they had to start in the second round against Splice again. This time it's a 3-2 series. They're down 2-1, and they actually are able to win the 4th game and clutch it out. Nice Irelia game from Perkz. You don't really associate him with that champion. You had the weird Heimerdinger and the Tarmketch, which was obviously the OP bot lane when you're playing on this G2 because of how Hyan and Wadid's tendencies are. Then in the next round, you play against Schalke, who, by the way, made it to the final. This is the one where they had the amazing lineup with Nuke Dog, Upset, Vizichachi, Van, a very good lineup, by the way, coached by Giotto, who's a very underrated coach, actually. In game 4, which you win, Perkz has an excellent Cassiopeia game, one of his best champions at the time, beats out Nuke Doc. You win. At this point in time, by the way, he is 10-2 in game 4s. So, okay, let's go to Worlds. Now, at Worlds, I mentioned earlier, they did have that weird thing where they had to play a series in the opener, actually. And just like Cloud9 struggled, actually, it was dodgy. Infinity won the first game. So in game 4, G2 does win. You have a decent performance on LeBlanc from Perkz against this LLA team that you won't really know. Yeah, there you go. He goes up to 11-2. But this is what you want to see. In the playoffs, they were drawn against the best team in the world. The team going for the Grand Slam. RNG of Uzi I and Ming, Zhao Hu, monster lineup. And they go down 2-1. He comes back in game 4 and wins with a mega 7-1-4 Aatrox performance. Decent game by Wunder also on the Rise, because obviously this was a solo lane team. Then in game 5, you all know he did the LeBlanc hero carry, blah, blah, blah. Then we go to, luckily he got 3-0 in the next round, so it doesn't have to be a game 4. Then we go to MSI the next year, because remember, G2 was just, when he swapped to ADC, G2 was just too dominant in spring, and they reckon everyone, they had the record final time. So then you go here, and in the playoffs, they're able to, and in the playoffs here, they play immediately against SK Telecom, the champions of Korea. This was the year I think they beat Griffin in the final, and they're down 2-1. SKT's just had a big game, we've played. They're up 2-1. Normally, Korean teams just win. So in the same way as RNG is supposed to win, number 1 team of the world, at the time, people might have said SKT's number 1 team of the world. They're a very, very good team. FPX was good over in China, but obviously this was the time they actually didn't qualify. IG was... maybe people would have said it was IG because they were reigning world champions and they won China, and obviously they looked great in the group stage. Okay. That obviously didn't ever get to play them. In the 4th game, you look here, big game from Caps. All right, game on Varus from Perkz. By the way, the game 5 was obviously that beautiful one, wasn't it? Where he went with the Syndra pick and surprised everyone. Then you go, obviously the final was a blowout for that one. Then you go to the summer split. Remember, this is where we had a weird double elim format for once in Europe, years before we went back to it. And this is where in the upper bracket final, they famously played against Fnatic. Fnatic goes up. That's wrong. Why does it show that as the winner? It show that as a winner. Because obviously it has to be Fnatic. Fnatic goes up 2-0, 2-1. That's just a mistake there. Oh no, because they were 2-1. That's it. It was a reverse sweep. So it was 2-0 Fnatic. And actually then they have to win 3 games out in a row, by the way. But to win game 3, it's 2-1 Fnatic. Then in game 4, the game we want to see, Perkz mega game on Xayah. Obviously Xayah and Kai'Sa were being the champions he was able to rely on in this year. Really good game for him there. Caps has a very good game too on the Syndra. Just a great game from G2 all around, and then they win the game 5. But then if you remember, then in the final, they play another Fnatic game, another time where it's 5 games, and Fnatic again is up 2-1 in the series. So in game 4, Perkz scores absolutely ham on the Xayah, 8-0-3. He actually played more like a modern Season 10 onwards ADC than he did the traditional Reckless ADCs. He used to be very aggro and play about in the mid-game and leave lane when he needed to. He was obviously a fabulous macro player. Caps also had an amazing Silas game. Interesting game there to keep them in it. And then obviously they won, and they won their 4th title in a row, or in his case, it was like their 6th title in a row in Europe. Then you go to Worlds that year, famously, a little bit sus in the groups. They didn't know how well they would do. In the quarterfinals, they played against Damwon, who was very strong over in Korea. They managed to win the 4th game. Perkz has a good Xayah game. It's mainly about Jankos on the Gragas here. Then you go to the semi-finals. They play T1 again. T1, still a very strong team, expected to win, favoured to win. This is when they did all the cross-map plays and gave up all the towers. And G2 actually manages to win game 4. They win with a Caps massive Syndra performance, a Yasuo pick that actually did work, even though it didn't necessarily get all the kills. And again, this team couldn't play mages in the bot lane. They couldn't handle when you pulled out these Yasuo Syndras. And Perkz was just torturing these guys in the draft. So big game in the game 4 there. Obviously, they got 3-0 in the final, so we don't count that one. Then we skip forwards to 2020. Technically, some of this was online, but they also had some studio games at times, I think. And so in the semi-final, this is a double format again. In the upper bracket, famously, they lost in that clutch game to, I think they could have won game 4, but Mad Lions won it, and then Mad Lions actually clutched it out in game 5. So obviously, Mad Lions is up 2-1, but actually he wins game 4. In game 4, he's mid lane now. He'd swapped back for this split, remember? He was actually the one of the best players, even though Jankos was the MVP of this split. 8-0 on the Cassiopeia against Humanoids of Renekton. Big boy game. Then you go elsewhere in the upper bracket. You're going to go next to the Origin series. This was actually when Origin was still pretty good. They had really strong lanes. They just had a bit of issues with making top and ADC work together, and the jungler was a bit off the reservation. So you go here. They win in game 4. Perkz has a decent Akali game. Caps actually has a pretty good MF game. Jankos amazing on Olaf. Skip forwards. In the upper bracket final, they played Mad Lions. In the semi-finals, rather, they played Mad Lions when they dropped down from the upper, so it was the rematch to see who'd come third. Mad Lions actually manages to win a game there, but it's a 3-1 for G2. Perkz is godlike on Azir. Mega carry. Obviously, great game by Caps 2 on Callista. In the final, they win 3-0, where they had that, like, fucking dream of, like, what the bot lane would be like with Lulu and what was it? Lulu and Cogmore from Caps. One day, I'll tell you the real story behind that, by the way. Then in the summer split, They had, again, upper bracket final against Mad. They won 3-1 this time. So he's back in ADC. He worked himself into form because he had that tragedy with his dad earlier on. On the Senna, which is the champ he started to play, and the Ashe, he was just okay. This was mainly just a team win over Mad Lions. You go to the final, the upper bracket final rather. Upper bracket final was a 3-2 against Fnatic, and Fnatic is up 2-1 again. This is when people were having good games. They have self-made mega carry, Nemesis decent, Reckless good. It's a pretty good lineup from Fnatic, even though people like Nemesis whine like little bitches now. In game 4, G2 clutches it out. Perkz on the Ashe has an extremely good game, 0 deaths. Fabulous game. By the way, at this point in history, he is at, let me see, this upper bracket final. He'll be 22-2 in game 4s, which is an impossible record. He's playing the best in his region and international teams. In the upper bracket final, it's a 5-game series. G2's actually up 2-2. They lose this game 4, actually. Larson Zakali has a great game. Hamzana's Kalista does really well. Inspired does well. This is just a great game from Rogue, who are very much a team on the rise, even when they had Inspired, no matter what people tell you. So actually, yeah, interesting one there. You look at that and you say, hey, this is summer. You win that one. And obviously the final was the 3-0 and people like Caps just smurfed. Even though what's hilarious is around this time, after this final, Nemesis said he ranked himself above Caps because he's the delusional narcissist, isn't he? Then you go to Worlds, where obviously people will remember they had the inspired 3-0 victory in the quarterfinals over Gen G and BDD, so there was no game 4s there. But in the semis, they played what at the time was supposed to be the best team in the world. It was Damwon Gaming. They were down 2-1. They didn't win game 4. It was okay on the Senna, but everyone just struggled on this one. They got mega clapped in this game, if you remember. Then he goes to North America for the $6 million or whatever, and you're all thinking, well, he wasn't good in Cloud9, just injured all the time. So in the lock-in tournament, yes, sometimes had dodgy rosters, and sometimes one player wouldn't be playing. Cloud9 was playing, and they had to clutch it out all over the place. So Sounds Industry 3-0 there. You go to the semi-finals. Semi-finals against 100 Thieves, which you remember was a decent lineup. This team obviously came online later in the year when they got Abidage to replace Demonte in the mid lane. But aside from that, you got the whole same lineup. 2-1, 100 Thieves is up. They actually start up 2-0, and then they clutch it back in Cloud9. Game 4, Perkz 2-1-7 on TF, because at this point, it wasn't about dominating lane, it was about making the clutch plays. So this allows them to go all over the map, obviously, and then Sven's able to carry. Then you go to the final, TL's up 2-0. TL smurfing, Alfari was excellent at the time. Jensen was very good. Cloud9 claws it back. Game 4, Cloud9 wins with a TF 4-2-9 Twisted Fate performance, also allowing Sven to carry, and they win the LCS lock-in tournament. Then you go, even though this says mid-season showdown, it's because they renamed Spring at this point in time. This was just Spring, basically. So you go in Spring, they beat 100 Thieves easily enough. You go to the next round. They play against TL. They're down, they up 2-1, and then they win the 4th game. He does very well on Lucian, 4-1-3. He's the main carry of the game. Pretty good TL lineup the whole time, by the way. This is just when they had the whole Jat thing, which I helped take care of. And then in the finals, they play TL, and TL is up 2-1 again. And in the 4th game, you know who, Perkz on Zoe, 3-0, 7-0 deaths, lets Sven carry, clutches the game out, they win the championship, he adds another title. I think at this point he'd won 9 titles or something bonkers like that. Then you go to the summer, because obviously at MSI they never got to the best of 5s, even though they won the odd game against Damwon or whatever. You go to the summer, and this time they have to start because they actually messed up the split a little bit in the first round. So in the first round, they play TL, who was the dominant team at the time. TL wins 3-1. So actually, this time he's down 2-1 and he loses a game 4. This is one of his 3 losses in game 4s or whatever it was when he's down 2-1. He usually wins. He has 12 wins or something. He, as the Silas, doesn't do very well. They get clowned on generally by TL. They easily take care of Golden Guardians. Next round, they play against EG and 3-0 them. Then they play, it was TSM, I think. Yes, 5-game series against TSM. TSM's up 2-1. Power of Evil's doing well. Hooney's smurfing on Camille. Everyone's looking good here. Game 4, you know who, Mr. Clutch. 8-1-6 on the Syndra. Fabulous game. Clutch it out, win the game 5 as well. In the lower bracket, you get beaten by 100 Thieves. You have to finish 3rd. They obviously went on to win the championship this time against Team Liquid. And this is where you're down 2-1. This is another one of his rare losses. You just have a great game from Closer. Nice game from FBI, who's one of the most underrated players from LCS ever, maybe. He just doesn't have a great game on Oriana, and generally the team's just not that good. Then we go back to Europe. He had his Vitality super team, and at this point, They play against XL, who made the first, I think, for the first time ever, because they had, was this when they got Mickey X? Yes, they got Mickey X in. XL's actually up 2-1. Look at these fabulous games. Nuke Dog, Smurfing, everything's going great. You know who comes along in game 4. Perkz, 3-1-7. Alfari has a carry game on Nar. On the Corky to win out, and then they clutch out the last game. And then there's one more, and it's a loss, which is actually, last year, people forget that Vitality did make the playoffs in the spring split. And they lost in the upper bracket to BDS, so no game 4. And then in the lower bracket, they lost to Mad Lions, who ended up actually winning this split. Down 2-1, so it's another example of him losing after being down 1-2. But it's one of the 4 times he ever did it. This is the 4th time. And then he lost, and actually he was all right. He was all right on Tristana. It was just a very good game for a bunch of the players here. Chasey 6-1-7 on the Kennen, 5-2-9 for Niski. So yeah, as you can see, what a fabulous player under pressure. And by the way, if you want some streaks, how about after he lost that first game 4, which when he was down 1-2, which was against SKT in the MSI final, he then went on a streak of 7 wins in a row across 3 years before he lost again. Then when he lost it took a whole, almost till the end of the year before he lost again. He had after that, he had a streak of 4 in a row. And then of his last 3, he's 1-2. So his career went down a little bit, but even that XL one was a win. So what an insane career this guy had. Just one of the most clutch players to ever play League of Legends, and truly one of the most gifted European players in terms of nerves, poise, and belief in himself.
Hey guys, this is Perkz, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel. I would like you guys to appreciate his YouTube channel, even though he talks sometimes so much bullshit that not even I can handle it. But most of the time it's pretty funny and entertaining, so have a nice time with this video.
Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadjou, Mac Pugnatio Rajcula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Tooorin, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are? Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.